Hello everyone, we are live again with Bootcamp 2020. Today we are going to cover again React Native, but what we need to do is we need to build a small application so that we understand that what component we need to use and how we will be using those components. And also we'll be using native base so that we have pre-built component to use in our application instead of creating and styling a lot of components by ourselves. We'll be using native base so that we have a pre-built component. Sajay, do you want to add anything?
Yes, the best way to learn any framework is by building a small to-do app. That's what I do. First, I do a Hello World, and then I build that to-do app. It gives you a little bit feel of the thing. So therefore, that is our
Yes.
target today.
Yes. So, should I start?
Yes.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, first of all, let me show you nativebase.io. So what we are going to do is we are going to create an application and we will integrate native base. So nativebase.io is website for the native base, and they have given detailed material and documentation how you can use their component. So you can see all the details in the docs. We'll be following docs based on initial installation and setup what we need to do. So first of all, we'll go to getting started. So it shows what you need actually, and what as as we have seen in our last class, we'll be using with expo. So we'll see setup expo instead of setup with React Native, because we are using you can do with React Native as well, but there is an additional step with expo, so we'll go with the setup with expo. So for setup with expo, what we need to do is as we have done in our previous class, expo init and your project name, that will be your basic code base. It will set up expo will create a basic application with just an app.js. Then what we need to do is we need to install native base. Native base is a library module. Once you install it, all the component from the native base will be available to us. Another thing we need to do is expo install expo fonts. So you will see the usage of it once I'll show you the example. More often we need to use some type icons or some type of fonts which are available in which are not directly available. So we need to use those fonts or those icons. For that we'll be using expo. We'll be using expo fonts. So for that we need to install expo. So I have created a basic application, and just what I did is expo init React Native to do. Then I call yarn add native base inside that folder, and then expo install. So these three steps I have already been done, because I don't want to waste time in installation. So we are done with that. Let me open the project. Again, this project has nothing special but a native base and expo font, which is additional. Other than that, our app.js is empty. Now, what native base provide offer us? I'll I'll come over here later in the getting started. In the component list, it gives us complete detail anatomy, basically the structure of application. So native base recommend a structure for, so that you wanted to create a header or footer and a container. So for that, every component or every screen should be inside a container tag. Then if you want to have a header, just create a header and you will have a header. If you go with the without native base, then you have to do all the effort by yourself. And then inside the content should be your page content and then footer. So it will show you the UI, as you can see here at the right side. So they give us example at the live. So you see header, content, and the footer. Another good example is the badges. So they give us badges when we want to create a badge. Then buttons, forms, and a lot of other things. We'll explore them one by one when we'll start creating our application. So we'll focus on creating a to-do app. So what we need to do is, once we done all these installation, native base, expo, what it recommends is there is a file. We need to load the font, robo font and robo medium and icons. For that we need to call font.load async. And because this example is based on class component, so we need to do it based on our functional component. So let me go over there, and in app.js, as we discussed previously, when we learning the React, that all the component did mount, component did update, component unmount, all the functions have a one replacement, which is use effect. So I'll be using use effect for this. And square bracket. Now we have this use effect function, and we have to add everything inside it. Now we'll copy this. Okay, we need a font. Okay, it will not load, so we'll import these two lines, expo font and expo vector font. Okay. Now await, as we can as we know that for await, what we need to do is we need to do it inside the async function. Okay. Now the second step, what they're suggesting is, until and unless these fonts are being, if these fonts are not being loaded, your application should not show anything related to the your interface. Just show the app loading. So they have used ready property for to manage the state, and once this loading is done, they turn it to is ready true. So then your container or your component can be displayed. So that's the basic step which native base recommend for us. So whenever we are trying to work with the native base, so these are the basic steps. Create this template for once, and you can use it every time. So and again, they are using with class component, so we have to use with functional component. Is ready false, and now what we need to do is, if is ready is a false, then show the loading. So what I'll do is here, if not is ready, then return. At this moment, I'm just returning the text box. Text should be from native base. So we have a component with the React Native, but now we wanted to use the component from the native base. So I will call text from native base. Instead of default, I'll pick the native base one. Okay, so we are done with it. Is ready. Once the loading is done, what we will do is set is ready to true. So is ready will be true. So once it is true, it will become the false. If this if will not work, and we will have this code to view. Okay, so let me export start web. I'll be also running directly on my mobile as well, so that, because there is one problem with working in Expo Web in native base, you need to add one more thing into your. Okay, yes, you can see this error. Previously it was not there, might be a new issue. So I was searching for that, and they recommend that you should add there is an open issue for this on native base library. So they are saying that add this build portion inside your app.json file. So this is the new one. It is recently reported on in 2020. So maybe because of the new changes, there is some problem. So you don't have to worry about. Just go to app.json and add this. This is only if you wanted to display your app inside the browser so that we can keep continue working. Otherwise, if you wanted to do the test directly on Android, then skip this step. It will not be affect your application. Okay, so once it's done, let me start again. Okay, now our app is available in web browser, and I'll also run it on my mobile. So I'll be having view on mobile as well. So at the end of once we are done with everything, I'll show you on my mobile that it is running on mobile as well. Okay, now let's go back to our code. Now what we need to do is we need to create a structure, and as native best suggests, what we have to do is in the component they have given us a basic structure that you should create a container, and if you want to have header, use this header. So let's remove everything. Container, header. Header should have a body. If you wanted to add a text inside the header, so we are saying home to do, and after the header we can have content. So whatever content, whatever page we want to display, and then we don't need a footer, but you can have a footer over here so that you can display the footer. So at this moment we don't need it. What we'll do, I'll just show the text box for a moment. Okay, so here you can see we have basic application, header, home to do. I guess text box is not working correctly. It's not using the text box from the native base. And in body, we also need the text from. It should be white. So again, it is not using the textbook from native base. Why is that? Okay, so it should be white, but never mind, we'll change color by ourselves. So at this moment, this header text is on the left side. I wanted to make it in center, so I'll go for the style and I'll say align items center. So by default, your all the components are based on Flexbox. So you can just apply these properties and you will have the. Okay, you can see we have a header and If you will be working without native base, then you have to make an effort to just create this header. Now we have this container over here. What we need to do is we need to first display a button, which will be the add to do button, and then we need to display a list. Okay, so I'll create button from the native base. Um, so you can see a button add to do. If I wanted to do, let me show you. In case of a button, if we go for list of buttons, so we have few properties, like you can make it success, so it will be green. You can make it primary, so it will be blue, warning, danger, dark. Another property is make you, if you provide a property full, so what it will do is it will stretch the button. So these are the few functionalities provided over here. You can copy it and use it the way you want. So let me make it full. So you can see it captured the full screen. Now I wanted to change the color, so either I can use the success, so it will show me green button, or I can provide the style, and I can say background color still green, but that will be a different kind of a green. So that's how you can do it. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have margin. You can see we have a margin from both sides. One more thing you need to understand, if you are working or displaying a project directly in the browser, and if you write this, it will work in browser, but when you will run on Android device, it will not work, because for Android you have to provide like this. So make a practice like this one, because we, as we have used web application and we have a practice to you always provide the px with our properties for margin and padding. So we have practice to do this. But when you are working with the React Native, keep the practice of just providing the value. It will be in pixel, and it will work for both web and Android or iOS devices, so you don't have to worry about it. Margin horizontal is in a different property in React Native. We don't have in React. What margin horizontal does is it gives the margin on both sides, so you do not have to provide margin left and margin right. So it will work for the both sides. Okay, so we have a button. Now what we need to do is we need to add a list. So we need to display a to-do list. So for that, what I'll do is I'll add one more component.
Zeeshan,
And then
One of the students were asking that in Expo multi-page is slow. Is that correct?
multi-page means multi-page application.
Uh-huh.
I don't think so. We have used Expo with the multi-page application as well. It's just in a navigation. Uh, yes, we have not discussed the navigation yet. We have a few options which I'll show you at the end of the class. We might not be able to do it, but if you have done navigation in React Router with React, so you can do in this as well.
So therefore,
But
there's
that
no
will
problem with multi-page performance
no,
problems.
no, no. I'll make it to do list return for now, just returning text. Okay, so we need to add this over here. After the button component, we need to add this to do list. Okay, so now we have this to-do list, which is completely attached with the button. So what we can do is we can specify style. Let's say, oh, sorry, we have to do it inside, or we can do it here. Margin bottom 10 px 10. We'll have some breathing space in to-do list, and inside this to-do list, because it's already inside a container and everything, so we don't want to use a container again. And now here what we wanted to do is we wanted to display a list. To display a list, React Native gave us a list component. So you can use the list component, and inside that each element will be inside the list item, and then you can manage all the content whatever you wanted to add in a particular list item. So we'll use this list and list item here. So instead of text box, I'll go for the, and this completely depends how you wanted to display it. Either you wanted to create a first container, so use the view and then use list inside it. Otherwise, do not use it. List item. Okay, so we have first list item, and you can replicate it. We will have a multiple list item. Now, as we'll be receiving to-do list as an array, so instead of using the list item duplication, what we'll do is we need to iterate over here. So first we have to send the list item from the app.json app file. So what we'll do is we'll create for to-do list, set to-do list, use state, and inside that we are expecting an array of objects. So array, and I'm adding one element over here, and you can provide whatever property you wanted to use. Let's say you are creating a list of users, so we'll have a name, id, email address, password. We wanted to use uh, to-do list, so I'll say completed false. So at this moment the first item will be completed false, and I have just added one item. Let me add one more so that we can see. So we have a two default values, and then we need to pass this list inside the this to-do list. So I'll just have to do nothing but just, let's say I wanted to provide a property, so I will say abc equals to-do list. This abc will be my property in to-do list. What I'll do is I can access here props, and here I can access props.abc. So abc is not a good word, so I'll keep the name as just I was just wanted to show you that you can name it anything. So at this moment I'm naming it the same as to-do list. Okay, so now we have props.to-do list, and inside this what I'll do is, instead of having this, I'll create props.to-do list as we are receiving this dot map. And we have seen this many a time while working with React and Gatsby application. To iterate, we will have an item, and instead of this curly bracket, I'll use round bracket, so we don't have to use the return keyword. And here I'll pass this portion, and in here instead of, I'll say item dot title. I'll remove this one. Okay, so now we have our to-do list. If you go, so you can see we have these two properties display. Now, as much as property will provide over here. So once we'll implement the add screen, we'll see that we will have all these properties coming from here. You can see. Okay, so now we have our list item over here. What we wanted to do is we wanted to display a checkbox so that we can tick off element is completed or not. We wanted to have a delete item, and it's depend completely on us how we wanted to use the implement the to do item. So we wanted to have a button so that we can delete, and those two things. So let me create a checkbox. Okay, so for checkbox again, React Native has provided us a component checkbox. Yes, so you can use the checkbox property and use the check property to mark it true or false. So I will checkbox checked equals to by default. Let me keep by default as a true so I can show you. You can see we have three checkboxes, and I wanted to have a delete button. So for that I'll use icon. For icon, what we can do is we can use name and let me show add. As I use add, it will show me icon of add. I'll use trash, so it will show me the trash bin. Where we find it, when you work with the expo, they have given us a guideline of related to the icons in the expo guide. Here we have icons, and they have given us a link to display list of complete icons. So you will have this list, and you can name it anything. Let's say you say right circle EO or the vertical left or the back. So it will display icons like this. If I say back, so why it's not appearing. Yeah, it should be there. Let me see info. So there are a few icons that are not loaded yet. Do we have any error? Key prop, that's the different error. Okay, I'll info is not a valid icon name for family iconic. Okay, so md dash info. Okay, so it's mentioning that it's not a valid name, but there it's available over here. So okay, so what we can do is we can import from here. Yes, we have done this. Okay, so it's still not loading. Anyways, so at this moment I'm just skipping. Otherwise, you can go with these icons, and you will have the list of all icons. at this moment, the one we require is working. So guys, now I wanted to do the alignment. One more thing, we have learned in React set key property. Whenever you create a list, you need to provide a key property. So item dot id, so it will keep the unique. So it will not see the error. Now I wanted to align these items. So let me show the ID as well, so that 1, 2, 3. Now we wanted to display distances between them. So we have style. We wanted to distribute them evenly or based on some logic. So we can this flex one. I'll show you what flex one will do. It gives the equal priority of size to all the element. So it will distribute the space evenly between these four elements. Now there's a problem with our checkbox, and it distribute evenly. So what we can do is, we can, let's say for the title we want more space, so we can say 5. So for the text description, it will give more space. For checkbox, it's very bad, because checkbox itself should not be stretched. So what we can do is view, and inside that view, because view, as I mentioned in our previous class, that for view is like a div for us. Whenever we wanted to use a container anywhere, we will use the view. Now you can see checkbox is in normal size, but it's acquiring the more space. So you can say 6. We have enough of a style, so you can add more style into it and adjust based on your requirement. But at this moment, we have this uh, text delete button and checkbox. Now we can move for the add screen, so that we can see that how we can add the to do. So we need to work on this button. Okay, so app.js. Okay, again, as we were discussing a moment ago, that uh, when a student asks a question, multi-page application related to multi-page, we have not learned the routing yet in the React Native, but we have learned routing in React. So routing is exactly the same with the different library, of course. So at the end of the class, I'll show you the two libraries, how you can add the routing. I wanted to keep it this class only for the UI element and how we'll be managing React. So I'm not adding routing over here, but if you have worked with React routing, you can do the routing very easily inside this React Native application as well. Okay, so now what we need to do is, somehow we need to display the, whenever we click the add to do button, we need to empty the screen and we need to display another screen, and we have not learned the React routing. So how we can do this? So first of all, let me create the component add to do dot search, and many things are not needed over here. So okay. And now we need to use display this screen whenever we click this add to do button, or for instance, we need to display this add to do screen directly. So what we need to do is, on the click of add to do button, we need to do some action. This is our add to do button. So we'll call on press, And inside that, we cannot navigate to any screen at this moment because we do not have React routing. So what we will do is I'll use another state management, say show at to do screen or whatever name you wanted to give it. Use a state, and I'll keep it false as a default. And what we'll do is if show add to do screen true, return add to do. What it will do is when we'll press this button, we need to call the set show add to do to true. So we'll update this state, component will reload, and component will have this state as a true. And what it will do is ready is already been done. So it will for the show add to screen, it will display add to do component directly, and this all these things will not be worked. So you can see add to do screen. Again, let me refresh it. As I click add to do. Now, because we wanted to it as a separate screen, so we will have to add all the container header and everything. So for the moment, what I'm doing is I'm copying this container and everything, and I'll adjust based on my requirement. I wanted to have header, yes. I wanted to have a content, yes. But other than that, let's remove for a while, keep the text box only. So we'll have the header home, we'll keep say add to do. You can see add to do header and we have hello. Now what we need to do is we wanted to add a text box and a button so that when we type in something and press the add button, it to add the to do into our to do list. For that we need a form elements, and native base also provide that to form. So form, um, here you can see username, password, and a button. So for that we have to create a form and item tag. For that you also need to read this. It is saying that form component is exactly the view component, is replacing the view component. Item component is touchable opacity. So any element you wanted to have a click on it or a touchable, you wanted to have a touchable opacity. For that we have an item property. You wanted to do input, create input text box. So React Native has an input text box, so we'll be using input. React Native has a text. To display text we'll use label if we wanted to use it. So just copy this form, item, and everything from here. Okay. So we have two element with us. You will see we have two text box, and they have provided the multiple style of forms. So one is the simple username as a placeholder. Another one is fixed label. So whenever you type, if label will stay fixed. Another one is inline label and the floating label. So whenever you type, the placeholder will go up so that you can see whatever you are typing. For example, For inline label, if I copy from here, we need to have a label as well. Okay. So you can see we have an inline label means your text box text will remain placeholder will remain over there and you can type anything inside the text box. Now we wanted to have a one text box, so I'll remove the other one, and we wanted to have a button over there. And inside that we will say add. We wanted to click every time on this button. So for that, for the time being, what I'll do is I'll keep this true for a while, so that every time page refresh, it will be come on to add to do screen. So that once we're done with this screen, we'll remove this default implementation. So for add button, what I wanted to do is with the add button, I wanted a full as a full. I wanted to use it as a success. Will show me like this. And for the form, what I wanted to do is for form, it's completely attached to the top and at touching both sides. So what we can do is we can say margin. So margin will be from all sides. So let's say 30. So you can see. So if I wanted to give us margin for the button as well, so I'll say only margin top. I want margin top. Okay, and username should be to do title. Yes, so we have this. So we have this screen, this add button, and now what we wanted to do is we wanted to capture this text and create a to do. For that, we have to use the uh, on change in what you say for the React Native. So for that, we'll create first text comma set text. Default will be empty string. And the good thing about the on change text function, we have a text change function event on the input box, and good thing is we can provide directly this set text over here, and it will do it uh, all the changes will directly be updated in the text property, so we do not have to do it manually. We'll just see if there is a change. So what we'll do is on press on the button, press of a button, I'll say console dot, and I'll try to print this text. Okay, so typing, once I press the add button, you can see text added. So if I'll say hello world add, so you can see the implementation of capturing the text is done. Now what we wanted to do is we wanted to add this item into the in our to-do list, and we need to close this screen as well and go back to the uh, to-do list. For that, what we need to do is in to do this screen, we need to have a to-do list. Then we need to update the list, so we need to have a set to-do list. So we need to have access both of these properties, to-do list, set to-do list. So let me show you first, then okay, so we might need to send this to-do list, and because once we'll change anything, we need to update the complete list in its state. Then once this add to do is done, we need to close this screen. To close this screen, we need to update uh, this state. So we also need to send it here as well. So instead of sending all these things here, what we can do is we can create a function inside here, const add to do item, and we'll send this add to do item. It is expecting a text or a to do text, and we'll send this to the add to do component. So add to do component will call this function from button here. We'll call props dot we have props. So what add to do will do is props dot add to do item, and it will pass this text into this function. So rest of the functionality will move to the uh, this function. So we do not have to pass add to do list, set to do list, set add screen. All the thing will be done over here. We'll just pass one function. Add to do screen will call this function, and it will back to the uh, uh, functionality of this screen. Okay, so once user press this, what we need to do, what we wanted to do, let me show console in add to do function app, just to show you guys. Once we add, and we call this in add to do function app. So our function is being called. We have sent this function in add to do, and we are calling this function from here. So actually this function is being called. So our calling stack is working fine. Now what we need to do is we need to update our to-do list, and we are assuming that we wanted to have a three properties. So at this moment we are receiving just title from the add to do screen, because we do not want to receive id from there, and the completed will always be false at the start. So we wanted to update this to do list. So first we'll create id, we need something, title will be the to do text which we are receiving, and completed will be false by default. Okay, now we need an id which should be incremental. So 1 2 3, we have a three elements already. So for that we also wanted to keep counter. Okay, so I'm keeping first three elements. So 1 2 3 is already there. I'll start from the 4. If you do not have any default values, you will start from the 1 or 0, as based depend on implementation. I'll provide the counter over here, and then I'll say set counter plus 1. You cannot do counter plus plus because counter is a constant. So counter plus plus will not work. You have to do counter plus 1. Okay, so the counter is done. Now we need to add this to do item into our to do list. Now one thing we can do is call the to do list dot push, but this is not the right way to do. So we can call to do list dot push, and set the to-do item. But this is not the right way to update the state in React or React Native. So we need to call the set to-do item, set to-do list, and we need to pass a complete array. We have just one element. So what we can do, as we have seen in Redux, we call all the data with the spread operator and add additional elements. So what I'll do is I'm create array over here, and this array I'll say dot 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 to do list. So all the element will come from this to do list here, comma, this to do item. That's the right way to update your state. Okay, so we have done this. Now let's see, refresh it. Hello world. Okay, so we need to move back to our initial screen. So what we can do is set show screen false. See, we have 4 elements here, and we can click add to do again. We can say hello new, and we will have completely list. You can see list is keep growing, and definitely if you refresh it, it will. Okay, now we do not want to come on the add to do screen by default, so we'll go to the app.js and make it false again, as we did this for the. Okay, so now our screen is done. We do something. Now the creation of add to do and adding in the list has been done. Now what we need to do is we need to delete it, and we need to check or uncheck it. At this moment, checkbox will not is not working. There is because we have not used connected it with our properties. So what we have to do is we have to go for the to-do list. Inside this to-do list, we have marked checked is true. So what we'll do is we'll say item dot completed. So the completed property completed false. Okay. Now you can see you cannot change it because it's connected to the property. So we need to update this completed property so that it changes. So on the click of checkbox, we need to change the item property to complete it to false or true. So I'll say on press. Now we need to do some functionality over here. So instead of writing all the code over here, we can create function, or it's a 1 or a 2-liner code, as I have done in add to do. It was just a 2-liner code, so I just did inside the on press button. But in this case, we need to iterate the array. So for that, I'm going for the separate function. Any name you wanted to do. Okay, in this update checkbox, what we will do is we'll iterate on the list, and we have the item. So what we can do is we can call this update checkbox here, and we wanted to know which item we need to update. So for that, we have item.id available. We'll pass this item.id here. We'll receive this ID here, and now we have the element ID, and we wanted to update that element inside the array. So what we'll do is I'll call props dot to do list. We have named it to do list. Props dot to do list. dot map. That map, we are asking for the item, and uh, we are just returning an item at this moment. So in the map, what we can do is we can manipulate, we can change the object. We wanted to change only one particular object, and map returns a completely new array list. It does not change the existing array list. So we need to update to-do list in our state as well. So map will return a complete new array list. So we have to capture this constant uh, updated list. So whatever map will return, we'll have in updated list over here. So by default, it should return the item, but only in case if the ID matches, then we need to change the completed property. So if we say item.id equals to ID, which is provided over here, then return again spread operator dot item. So use all the properties from the item. So ID, text, and completed all be coming from there. And then we'll say completed colon item.com, and we'll pass the not sign. So it will toggle it. So either it will be if it's true, it will be false. If it's false, it will be true. So we'll, if there is already a checkbox, it will remove the check. If it's there is no check, then it will place the check. So once we are done with this, let's see. No change. Oh, we have not updated the to-do list. Okay, so for that, we have to pass the set to-do list. Now again, we can move that functionality over in this screen, and we'll not have to pass all these properties. Now it's depends on us how we wanted to manage it. So I'm sending the set to do function over here, and once we are done with the changes, what we'll do is we'll call the props dot set to do list, and I'll pass this updated list inside. Okay, now like you can see, I'll remove it. We have few items. So checkbox is done. Now the final implementation, the delete, and our to-do list is based on basic structure. We can add many things in to-do list, but the functionality we are looking for. So for the icon, the trash bin, once I click on it, it should delete that particular item. So for that, I wanted to add on press inside the on press. What we wanted to do is we have this item ID again, and we wanted to delete that particular. So we wanted to change this array list and update the array list, updated the set the updated list into state. So again, we need a function. Okay, so we'll call this delete to do item here, and we pass the item dot id. So when we pass item to ID, we'll have ID over here. Now, similar to map, we have a filter function. Map is used to manipulate the objects and return the updated list. Filter is used whenever you wanted to remove or some elements, or you wanted to create a sublist from a list. Then you will use the filter. So we'll call const updated list equals to props dot list dot filter. I will also have the item. Here, filter. In case of map, we return an object. The object we wanted to have inside the list. In case of filter, we return true or false. So if we wanted to send a particular, we wanted to have a particular item in a list, we'll return true. If we do not want to send a particular item in the list, we return false. So for that, what we'll do is return, let's say I'm say true. So all the element will be in the list. If I'll say false, all none of the element in the updated list. So our error list will be empty. So what I wanted to do is if our ID and item.id are similar, then it should return false. Otherwise, it returns true. So what we can do is item.id not equal to ID. So item.id. So first, if we click the delete the third element, for first element item.id will not be equal to ID, so it will return true. Second element item.id will not be equal to ID, it will return true. For third element item.id will be equal to item ID, so it will return false. So that element will not be in final list. And then again we'll call props dot set to do. Okay, so it's done. I call it over here. See, so whatever way you wanted to add. Oh, I wanted to add delete fourth element. So I'll click this fourth. You can see I can click the checkbox, mark and complete. We can add strike over here there so that it will. So now it's depend on your UI or how you wanted to implement. We can add one more button over here to show all the checked elements. So it will display only completed element to show only uncompleted. So all these things can be done. Okay, so I guess this is a basic to-do app. We are complete. We are done with the basic to-do app.
And what we require is that you have done such a marvelous job. Please create a GitHub repository and send me the link so that I can update the bootcamp page.
Okay, so should I add in the comments as well?
Yes. Add it in the comments as well as send it to me. Okay, sir.
Okay, just a moment. WhatsApp is not loading. I'll send you in a while.
Okay. 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 Have you pushed the code?
So once we are done, I'll send you. WhatsApp is not loading at this moment. Okay, so I just wanted to now at the end just wanted to show you the routers library for the navigations, so that you can when wanted to learn, then you can use the one is Flux and another one is React navigation. So the React Native router Flux is similar to what we have done with the router in React. So as you can see, we have a router, and inside that we can call this tag, and you have a scene. So pass your component, its title, and you will have all the routing functionalities available over here. So you can use this router exactly like we have used with uh, React. We use React router. Another one is React navigation, which is provided by the native base. Sometimes this router not work with the React native base, so you might face some problems. It's an easier one. If you find problem with working with the native base, then you can go with this React navigation. It is also very good navigation library, but it has a different style of navigation. So you initially you have to learn the style, then then there will be no problem. So this will be a different. So you are creating a router, then you call the navigation router, then you provide home, chat, profile, and then you can use the router this way. So you have these two routers you can use for the navigation for the screens. I guess we are done with this.
Yes. And you had a severe cough, but
Yes.
you are still teaching. That's your dedication for the students. And thank you so much. And please remember to
Yep.
update the repository with
Yeah,
the code.
I'll push in a while just after the mid end of the class.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Okay.
Everybody. Bye.
Okay. Okay. Bye. Bye, everyone.